Hey, welcome back to the Gospel Music Training Center. This is JP, Jonathan Powell. Thanks for tuning in to another GMTC video tutorial. And needless to say, we're doing things a little bit different this week. We had a situation at our office where 5 different offices were flooded out because of a pipe that burst underneath the floor. And no one caught it until the next day. It happened in the middle of the night. And by the time someone caught it, all 5 offices were pretty much flooded out, including ours. So we ended up having to move out temporarily and put our things into a U-Haul truck because they have to replace all the floors and the carpet and everything because of the water damage. And luckily, none of our equipment got damaged. It's actually a blessing because we actually caught it the least as far as the damages and everything out of everyone else. Our office was the last one on the line of offices to get hit. It started from one and then slowly spread. And by the time it got to ours, the water actually stopped right before it got to the equipment. So it's pretty amazing how everything worked out where, we still have our equipment, but we still ended up having to move out temporarily. So, the production is at a standstill right now. But I wanted to still try to keep things going with some content. So I'm going to be doing things with the MIDI keyboard. And we should be back, hopefully, in the office in about a week. And we have to reset everything, the whole studio. We have to set everything up all over again. So bear with us. Thank you for being patient. I apologize for the inconvenience. And we're going to try to get things up and running and back to normal. Hopefully within a week, as fast as everything goes, we'll be up and running. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you an exercise, which is actually a really big chord progression that you could use to play and learn the chords that you need to know for most gospel songs in all 12 keys. But you're going to start with one key at a time. So we're going to start off in the key of G flat major. And I'm going to show you the scale and the number system. And then I'm going to show you the chord progression, how it's going to move. And then we're going to get into the types of chords and, the different approaches that you could use for this particular chord progression. All right. So we're going to be in the key of G flat major. G flat is the 1. A flat is the 2. B flat is the 3. B is the 4. D flat is the 5. E flat is the 6, F is the 7, and then we're back at the 1, G flat. So that's our number system and our scale. Now technically, when we got to the B, you would call that C flat, and that's because when you do scales, you keep everything in alphabetical order. So I just want to point that out. So you would go G flat, A flat, B flat, and then after B comes C, right? So technically you would have to call this C flat, and then it would be D flat, E flat, F, and G flat. But for the sake of simplicity, we're just going to call this B, and that's the 4. So what we're going to do is this big chord progression, and it's going to start on the 2, which is A flat. Then we're going to go to the 5, which is D flat. Then we're going to go to the 1, which is G flat. Then to the 4, which is B. And then we're going to go to the 7, which is F. Then to the 3, which is B flat. And then to the 6, E flat. And then we're going to start the whole thing all over again. So we're going to go 2, 5, 1, 4, 7, 3, 6. And then you could do a passing chord on the 6, or you can go to the G, which is the flat 2, or you can call it the sharp 1. But we're going to use the passing chord to start all over on the 2. All right, so that's a 2, 5, 1, 4, 7, 3, 6. And then back to the 2, 5, 1, 4. So once you get this chord progression down, what I would do, I would start the left hand first, so you can get an idea of how everything is moving, and then from there we can get into the right hand chords, or some chords might feel like a two-hand chord voicing, but you have to play the bass. So, you know, it's not quite what you would normally do if you have a bass player, but we're gonna try to keep it full. So, just talking about basic theory and harmony when it comes down to songs and chords and progressions. One thing that you should know is that the 1, 4, and the 5 in any key is going to be your primary chords. So in the key of G flat, the 1 is G flat, the 4 is B, and then the 5 is D flat. Now there's different times where some of these chords will change and they won't have that role, but you will see that when we get into this chord progression. And then all the other chords, which will be like the 3, the 2, the 6, and the 7, those chords most of the time are minor, or you can play some type of altered or dominant chord. But let's get into it. So we're gonna start on the 2, right? And what I'm playing on the 2 is an A flat minor 9 chord. I have A flat and G flat in the left hand, and then B, E flat, G flat, and B flat. So that's the first chord on the 2. So when we get to the 5, you have options. You can either just drop the G flat down to F in your right hand, or you can drop the G flat and the E flat down a half step. Okay? So basically, the left hand I have D flat, and then the right hand I have B, E flat, F, and B flat. So that's on the 5. So coming from the 2. Now before you go to the chord on the 5, you can play A flat, and then go to the chord on the 5. So it sounds like this. Or you could do this and drop the D, the E flat down to D, and the G flat down to F. So instead of having this on the 4, we have this. Okay? Now naming this chord, looking at it, it's, I would say it's a D flat 13 with a flat 9. Alright, so I have D flat in the left hand, B, D, F, and B flat. So going from the 2 to the 5. Now we're going to go to the 1. So notice that in my right hand, I'm playing A flat to B flat for the melody for the most part. So 2, 5, 1. So before we go to the 1, I'm playing A flat, and then in my left hand I have G flat, D flat, and F. In my right hand I have B flat, F, and B flat. And this is a G flat major 7 voicing. Now you can use E flat as a grace note in the right hand. So coming from the 2 to the 5 to the 1. Now, one thing about this particular chord progression is that if you know the types of chord that you're using on each tone, which would be the chord quality, you know, whether it's major, whether it's minor, whether it's dominant, you don't have to limit yourself to the actual voicings that I'm using. You can experiment with different inversions, you can experiment with different voicings and come up with different things. So I'm playing an A flat minor 9 on the 2, but you can take that and invert it down if you want to and play any inversion. So going from a 2 to the 5. You could do this on the 5 too as well. To the 1. And when we get to the 1, I played a G flat major 7 voicing. But because you know the chord is major, you can play a G flat major 9 too as well. So it all depends on how you want the chord to sound, but the chord quality is that the chord is major. So if you can think about the different types of chords that you know over certain tones, or the certain type of voicings that you know for a certain type of chord, like a major 7 or major 9, those are your options. I'm just including this melody to connect everything. So all together, the chord progression sounds like this, and I'm gonna break it down. And I'm keeping the melody the same. Okay, but you can always change the chords. You know, and keep the melody the same. Okay? So I'm just showing you this exercise because you can practice this chord progression and come up with a lot of different chords and voices, but at the same time, you're learning the types of chords that you will play over certain tones. So, you know, when you go to the 2, most of the time, it's going to be minor. So you kind of are developing some chords and progressions for certain tones in, you know, whatever key you're practicing this chord progression in. All right, so we got the 2, 5, 1 down. Now we're going to go to the 4. So on the 4, what I have is I play the A flat first for the melody, and then the top note of the chord is going to be B flat. So the top note of the chord is B flat, just for what I'm doing. But you can, you know, experiment and change it around if you want to. But I have B, E flat, and A flat in the left hand, and then D flat, E flat, G flat, and B flat in the right. Now, because B flat is the melody, this voicing is more open sounding. And this is like a B major 9, also with the 6 or the 13 in it as well. But you can actually take, it depends on how you want the chord to sound. But you can play every black key on here. So we have the 1, the 3, the 5 of B. We have the major 7, the 9, and then we also have the 6, which is A flat, or the 13, which is A flat. We don't have the 11th in, so we're adding the 6 or adding the 13. So if you look at this chord, all the black keys are pretty much taken. You got the G flat here, you got the A flat here, you got the B flat here, you got the D flat here, you got the E flat here. So that's all the black keys. So you can just take the top note and play all black keys, because that's what forms this voicing anyway. It just all depends on how you have a voice. But even voice like this, all the black keys are taken. It's just that instead of the E flat and A flat being up here, it's down here. But if you look at that, that's all the black keys. D flat, E flat, G flat, and A flat. So that's why you can take this chord and pretty much play all black keys and it still sounds good. But it all depends on how you want the chord to sound. Okay? So that's on the 4. So we got the 2 to the 5 to the 1 to the 4. Now we're gonna go to the 7. And it's going to be pretty much a 7, 3, 6 chord progression, okay? Which is F to B flat to E flat. So on the F, a lot of times when you do a 7, 3, 6 chord progression, the go-to chords are like a minor 7 with a flat 5, right? So this is a F minor 7 with a flat 5, but because F is in the bass, you don't have to have it in the chord. So you can let go of the F here and put it in the left hand. So it looks like a A flat minor chord over F. And most of the time when you hear this chord progression, which is a 7-3-6, in any key, it sounds like this. But notice that what I have in my right hand, you can't tell which hand is right, left, but the right hand I'm playing E flat, A flat, and B. And that's still that A flat minor chord, but you know, I use the melody of A flat to B to get there. But because we're doing this melody, that B flat to A flat to B flat, when I get to the F bass, I'm playing the same type of chord, which is based off the minor 7 with the flat 5, but I also have the 11th of F, which is also the 4. But that's the melody. So I have F and E flat in the left hand, and then B, E flat, and B flat in the right. Now you can also take this chord and spice it up. You can play C, E flat, and B flat in the right hand. But it really all depends on where you're going from here. So it's pretty much like playing an A flat major chord with an added 9 over F. Now you can make it even more fatter by making this chord like a minor 11 chord. So now I have F and E flat is in the left hand regardless, but I have A flat, B flat, C, E flat, G, and B flat in the right hand. So you have options. I'm just voicing chords and choosing the types of chords based off of the top note, which is B flat. So from here, we're gonna go to the 3, which is B flat. So on the B flat, I have B flat, D, and A flat in the left hand, and then D, G flat, and B flat in the right. Now, technically, some of these black keys we will call sharps because this is a B flat 7 with a sharp 5. And usually when you do a 7 to the 3, that's one of the chords that you can play on the 3, which is a sharp 5, sharp 9, in a 7-3-6 chord progression. So we're on the 3, and this is a B flat 7 with a sharp 5. Now, in this particular chord, we actually don't have the sharp 9 in it, but usually you would see the C sharp or D flat in the chord too as well. That would be the sharp 9, but this is just a sharp 5 chord. But just know that one of the options is a sharp 5 with a sharp 9 too as well. But I have B flat, D, and A flat once again in the left hand, and then D, and technically this G flat would be called F sharp because that's the sharp 5 of B flat, okay? So we have B flat, D, A flat in the left hand, and in the right hand, D, F sharp, and B flat. Now you can also take this chord and alter it some more, and instead of playing D, G flat, and B flat in the left hand, you could play B, E, and B flat in the right. So now we have a B flat 7 with a flat 5 and a flat 9. And I really like this chord because it has an abstract dissonance to it that works well when you go to the 6th tone. So on the 7, we have options. I'll show you this. You can also play this on the 7. You can also play, I didn't show you this one, but this is another option that you can play. And you can also simplify it with this one and this too as well. But from there, that's what we have on the 3. The B flat 7 with a sharp 5. Or the B flat 7 with the flat 5 and flat 9. Okay? So from here, we're going to go to the 6th tone. So on the 6th chord, that's going to be a minor type of chord, but I still have the B flat as the melody. So in my left hand, I have E flat, B flat, and G flat. We're gonna make this real full. And in my right hand, I have A flat, B flat. I'm playing that with my thumb. And then D flat, F, and B flat. Now, if you can't make the stretch in your left hand, you could just play E flat and B flat. But really, that stretch in the left hand from E flat to B flat to G flat, that's what really gives you this full sound, because this low end on the piano has these notes: E flat, B flat, and G flat. Okay, so it allows you to spread the chord out and sound very full. Now, you can take the 6th chord, and sometimes with the melody that you have on top, you can change the type of chord that you play to major, because most of the time the 6th chord is minor. So we could take the same chord. So what I have here is an E flat major 9 chord. I have E flat, B flat, F, and G. And then in my right hand, I have C, D, F, and B flat. So it sounds like this, coming from the 7 to the 3 to the 6. 7 to the 3 to the 6. Or you can go minor. 7, 3 to the 6. But notice that my melody is going ba, da, 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 da. So the A flat is coming in between every chord. Okay, so let's go from the top. So far we have the 2 to the 5 to the 1 to the 4 to the 7 to the 3 to the 6. Now from here, you have options of things that you could do. You could just stay on the 6 and play a passing chord, which is E flat and D flat in the left hand, and then D flat, E, G, and B flat in the right. So this chord is an E flat 7 with a flat 9. If we look at an E flat 7 chord, it will be E flat, G, B flat, and D flat, right? So this chord that I played a few seconds ago was an E flat 7 with a flat 9. So what is the 9? The 9 of E flat is F. The 9 and the 2 are the same thing. So if we count the scale, 1, 2, that's F, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when we extend chords, we keep going. 8, 9. The 9 is F, but the F is also the 2. So keep that in mind, that the 2 and the 9 are pretty much the same thing. But this is an E flat 7 with a flat 9. So we have to flat the F. So when we flat the F, we have E. So flatting anything just means you're going to take it and bring it down a half step. So we're flatting the 2 or flatting the 9. So that's how we end up with E. So this is how the chord looks, like in root position. And then we flat the 9, which is F, right? So this is what we have. It looks like a diminished 7 chord over E flat. Okay? So you can use this chord, but the B flat is the melody. So you would use this inversion because of the melody of B flat. And then in the left hand, you play E flat and D flat, and in the right hand, play B flat, D flat, E, G, and B flat. So far what we have is 2 to the 5 to the 1 to the 4 to the 7 to the 3 to the 6, and then stay on the 6, and then back to the 2. Okay? You can play it in whatever rhythm you want. You can keep it. This is another chord that you could do before you go back to the 2. All I did was take the same chord that I played on the E flat, which is the E flat 7 with the flat 9, and change the bass note, or change the left hand. So instead of playing E flat and D flat, I'm playing G and E. And they're already a part of the chord in the right hand. So what I have there is G and E in the left hand, and then D flat, E, G and B flat. And as you can see, the G and E is really already a part of the chord because it's in the right hand. So this is a G diminished 7 chord. If you look at a G diminished 7, it's G, B flat, D flat, and E. So it's a voicing of that. So from here, you just start all over. So 2 to the 5 to the 1 to the 4 to the 7 to the 3 to the 6 to the flat 2, or you can call it sharp 1, and then start all over. Now, once you get this down, you can start playing around with inversions, but still use the same types of chords. So I just took the same chord progression, but changed the melody, but kept the same chords, but just came up with different voicings around a different melody, but with the bass notes and the chords being the same. So this is just an exercise that I wanted to show you because this is something that kind of goes through all the basic chords, and not necessarily basic in the way of, you know, how they're voiced, but basic from the approach of what types of chords that you would play over the 2, or what types of chords you would play over the 5. You know, certain chord progressions like 2 5 1s, 7 3 6s. It kind of hits the main chord progressions that you would play in gospel music in most songs. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. This is something different. If you want me to do this over with the visual once the studio gets back up and running, I don't have a problem with doing that. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. Jonathan Powell is my username. God bless. Keep us in your prayers. And until next time, remember, if you can hear it, you can play it.